Hello everyone and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's mostly pretty good and maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and should remain in the depths of hell. Now last Saturday we discussed the first Rush Hour film, and I know I did say that I was gonna release Rush Hour 2 on Saturday. But I realized when I was looking at my schedule that yes, I was a week late on that Rush Hour review, which kind of, if I was going to go with the original plan, that would mean that the next three reviews after that would have been right at the end, basically. We'll lead up to right at the end of September, and then immediately gone on. I wouldn't take a break, immediately gone on to season 5. So, I kind of need a break, so, at least a week long, so I'm actually going to be cramming Rush Hour 2 and 3 into this week. So this review is obviously going to be coming out on the Monday, which is right now. And as at the time I'm recording this, we're going to be releasing this on a Monday, and the Rush Hour 3 review will be up by Friday. So just for clarification, and then the 100th episode will be released next Saturday. Jesus Christ, I'm already almost at 100 reviews. Jesus, and I've only been doing this for 2 years. All right. So, anyway, I just want to clarify that real quick before we get on to this review, in case if it's confusing anyone. So, with that out of the way, let's get on to the review itself. This week, today, I'll be discussing Rush Hour 2, released on August 3rd of 2001. Now, basically, there's not really that much to go over with the history per se, because it's basically the exact same as my history with the first film. Is that, I mean, I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot about the first film. And I did know that there were sequels to it. Obviously with Rush Hour 2 and 3, but I didn't really hear that much about the sequels. So it was always like, like what do these have in stall for me? So obviously, since I agreed, I wanted to do the trilogy for at some point, and obviously I reviewed the first film, so I might as well review the other two since I have them. And so obviously I had to watch Rush Hour 2. And I always go in with a mindset of, usually most of the time, if a movie has a sequel, it's usually never as good as the original, with some exceptions like Empire Strikes Back, Superman 2, Godfather Part 2, and etc. etc. So, going in, I was like, I'm not expecting this to be a bad film, but I'm expecting this to at least not be as good as the original. Yeah, I was correct, but it was better than I thought it was going to be. But let's actually move on. So, this film was made with a budget of $90 million, so that's a 57 57 plus million from compared to the original film, because the first film only had a $33 million budget, and yet this film has almost triple the amount. So yeah, domestically it made over 226 million, and worldwide it made over 347 million. So this was a gigantic success. And I can kind of see why, because people saw like, oh yeah, this is the sequel to Rush Hour. They didn't really care about, what the quality was necessarily, and they just kept on coming back. So they came back to the sequel, and I believe actually this is the most successful out of the Rush Hour trilogy. Because yeah, the first film only made over 244 million, and spoiler alert, the third film only made over, I think, about 140 million. So yeah, at least I think. So yeah, this is, I believe, the most successful out of the trilogy, which is surprising. And again, this was directed by Brent Ratner, who obviously returned for the sequel. And I'm glad he returned for the sequels, because honestly, I feel like that if another director came on after the original, at least with this film, it wouldn't have been as good as the original. Or it would, at least it wouldn't have been as good as it is, because, like I said, I was honestly surprised with how good it was. But again, we'll discuss what my opinions are later. So, after an explosion at the U.S. Embassy in Hong Kong kills two customs agents investigating currency smuggling, Inspector Lee and James Carter, played by Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker respectively, search for the mastermind. Ricky Tan, played by John Lon, head of the Fu King Long Tribe, sends out his minions to ensure that Carter and Lee don't solve the case. Now, this honestly for me, within the first 5 minutes, feels like a nice follow up to the original. Strictly with the fact that it literally almost feels like you could literally watch these two films back to back, and it literally feels like it's one gigantic film. Because obviously, the film starts in Hong Kong, where Lee and Carter were flying off to in the original for their vacation. And so it literally starts them off, I think, 2 weeks into the vacation, and already they have to deal with another case. Um, their relationship is back to kind of rocky ground at the beginning of this film, which admittedly is one thing that I don't like with this film, is that it kind of repeats the formula of their friendship, uh, where they well in the first film, the two never liked each other at the beginning, and then they slowly had to build up their relationship. Where this film, it's like they like each other, they've been friends at the beginning, and then they have a few arguments within the first act of the film, and then around the end of the first act, they fly back to LA because of stuff that happens in the plot, and uh, they're still on shaky footing until about the end of the second act, and then they're friends again up until the end of the film. So it's like you're kind of repeating yourself there, and I don't really like it that much. But with that being said, the rest of the film is honestly really good, as I've already mentioned. But it really boils down to what you want in a sequel. I say that what, I'm gonna say that for the end of this, but um yeah, so let's go over the cast. So we have Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker returning as Inspector Lee and Detective James Carter, respectively. They both do great again with their roles. I if I had to be completely honest, I feel like that Chris Tucker in this film kind of is a little bit more irritating than in the first film, but he's still that likable, wisecracking ass of a character that he was in the original, which I still like. Um, we have I'm probably gonna butcher this. Rosalind Sanchez. I think I actually said that correctly. As Isabella Milano or Molina. Um, I gotta admit, kind of had a thing for her. She looking, she was looking fine in this film. And she actually does great as the as her role in this film. So really do enjoy that. And then we have John Lone and Zhang Zia. So sorry if I butchered any of your names. As Ricky Tan and Hu Li, respectively. Now I recognized John Lon when I heard that name and I saw his face. I was like, "What are you from? I recognize you from something." And then I remembered he was the villain in The Shadow with Alec Baldwin. Now that's kind of uh, a not so talked about film, but I remember that when I heard about it, the guy that I got it from, he was telling me that the villain was also played the villain in Rush Hour 2. And so I remember that, and um I was like, oh yeah, you're the villain from The Shadow, and I might cover that sometime in the future. Um, uh, Hu Lee as is actually a really cool sidekick in this film. Um, I don't think she's as impressive as Zhang in the original, where honestly for me felt like he was the main villain because he was getting way more involved in um. Well, granted, she does way more fighting and like appears a lot more throughout the film than Ricky. Um, but yeah, I just feel like that she's not as good as Zhang, but still a very very entertaining henchman to watch. And the villain himself, Ricky Tang, is great. Um, we also have a now this kind of surprised me when I saw him in the film. Don Cheadle is in this film. Yes, he would the guy that would go on to be a major part in the Marvel Cinematic Universe had a role in Rush Hour 2. Granted, it's only for one scene, and I actually do have a fun fact about him later. But I was like, okay, Don Cheadle's is in this film, with a very convincing looking goatee. Now, if it's real, then props to them. But Jesus, and the hair, like it's like, oh my god, that looks faker. um, we also have Harris Yulin as Agent Sterling. And again, when I saw his face, I was like, I recognize you, even though you have a beard. I recognize you from somewhere. And then I remembered, oh yeah, you were the court judge in Ghostbusters 2, and you played a small part in Scarface, like one of the best known mafia films ever. So it's like, damn, there's like a lot of recognizable actors in this film. So that was a surprising find. And finally, we have Alan King as Stephen Rayne, and he is. I recognized him from stuff, but even then, he was like, it wasn't like an obvious like, oh, I remember you, like Harris Yulin and John Lon, and like really, he just seems to get typecast as like a stereotypical business kind of villain, and it's just like I know you, but it's like you do the same roles like over and over again. It's like Jesus. Um, I guess to really mention it, while the first film really took place in LA and had a few scenes in the beginning in Hong Kong, this film goes from it starts out in Hong Kong, then goes to LA for like it seems like that each act for me, it might just be me thinking about it too much, but it seems like in this film that each act had its own setting. So the first act was all Hong Kong, the second act was all LA, and the third act was all Las Vegas. So it was like setting A, setting B, setting C, and it's like Jesus. Um, so very impressive that they were able. I don't know if they actually were able to go to Las Vegas for this, but if they did, like damn, good job on you guys. Um, I don't know if they do that in the third film. I don't think they do because I think it all kind of takes place like in the first film, like in one location. So yeah. Um. So yeah. So basically, in terms of the U.S. embassy exploding, it was originally thought that they just blew it up because just for the sake of blowing it up, and then it's obviously revealed that they killed two agents that were investigating currency smuggling, which would become the running theme throughout the entire film. That the this clan led by Ricky Tan are making have these like two gold, I think it's gold or silver plates that are American like bills, and so they're basically counterfeiting them to like small businesses and then go to Las Vegas to eventually, I'm assume just make like give them out to people and then just make a whole bunch of money. I'm guessing. But obviously I think it's actually within the like at the beginning of the second act where they realize where Isabella tells the two that the money that they're making is counterfeit because she takes one of the $100 bills and grabs a lighter and lights it on fire, and they say, I don't know if this is true or not, if like if this is actually true or not, but she lights it on fire and it starts burning red. It has like a bright glow to it, and she goes, and that's how you know it's counterfeit because when you burn an American, if you burn an actual American $100 bill, it burns black because of the ink. And then they do the same thing to they show the same thing to Don Cheadle when they encounter him. So um like because they ask him like was anyone in recently, and he's like, yeah, like a couple of gang members or like a couple of, like Hong Kong people were in here with like there was like he said there was one Hong Kong member in there with about 5 people, and then the next day he came in with like the entire gang. So and then they gave him this money which he thinks is real, and then they ask him to see it, and then he grabs one of the $100 bills, and Carter takes it, grabs his lighter, and burns it, and um, again shows that it's a counterfeit because it starts burning red. And I honestly kind of thought that they were just gonna he was gonna set it like light on fire, and it was an actual $100 bill. But no, it was the counterfeit to show him like it's not fake. Um, but yeah, so I guess to move on to favorite scenes. I know that was kind of abrupt, but it's like I got really nothing else to talk about. Um, So, yeah, so I guess favorite scenes is, um, I don't know, this is gonna kind of seem like a retread, but the one scene like in the first film where I forgot what the scene was, but basically, I think, oh yeah, yeah, when in the first film when Lee is taken off the case and is going to be sent back to Hong Kong, uh, and then Carter like gets him out, and then they figure out the case throughout the entire rest of the film. Um, that's why I said last time was my favorite scene because you got to see Jackie's like acting chops, and it's the same thing in here when after the boat incident where Lee thinks that Ricky is dead because the henchman that or who Lee shoots Ricky, and Lee thinks that he's dead. So does everyone else. So Agent Sterling what is like, well, the one lead that we had is now dead, and I'm blaming it on you. So I'm sending you back to L.A. And they obviously go to L.A. Well, actually, no. That's not even it. Well, that is one scene, but the other scene I'm actually thinking about is when, like I said, there's a bomb that's planted inside the U.S. embassy and it blows up. The same girl, which is I believe is the henchman, disguises herself again, in a different wig because in the beginning it's a blonde wig. In this scene, it's a black wig. But anyway, she infiltrates there. Infiltrates the building that they're talking in, where they figure out that it was agents that were trying to figure out this whole smuggling thing. Um, she plants a bomb in the room that Chris Tucker's in, but he leaves the room as she's going in, plants the bomb in, and then when Lee comes, Carter leaves to go and I think to go do some like just to go around in the town to ask because I think he left his passport in uh the scene earlier where they had like a massive fight scene. So he's trying to ask if anyone knows where that is. But Lee doesn't know that. So when he exits the room and goes into the room that Carter's in, it blows up and he thinks that Carter's dead. And like there's one scene where after Carter sees Ricky, or actually no. Oh no, because this is before the whole massive boat shooting. Um, but like after he Carter sees Ricky and he tells the taxi to follow him, it cuts to a shot of Chan just sitting in a chair, just looking all depressed, and then the Chinese inspector in this film, which is not the same the uh it's not the same guy from the original, but surprisingly it looks very similar. But he comes up to him, he's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, I'm fine." And then he leaves, and then he's driving around in his car, and then he gets that he turns on the radio and he gets that one song that Carter was trying to teach him in the original, and he's switching like the head tilts, and then he gets a call from I forgot who. I think it might have been the Chinese inspector, I think, but it might have been someone else. And then they go to the boat, and then the scene goes on. But yeah, that's my favorite scene. It's just like again showing Jackie's acting chops. Um, I guess to talk about the fun facts is that remember that I said earlier that I had a fun fact about Don Cheadle? Well, this is it. So, did you know that Don Cheadle only agreed to do the film if he could, one, fight Jackie Chan, and two, if he could speak Chinese? And so, in the one scene that he's in, you see him when they initially confront him. They ask him they start asking him questions. And he's like, you know what, I'm gonna like I ain't gonna deal with your bullshit. So and he tries to. He's like, all right, I'm gonna fight you. And Carter's like, all right, and he pulls a gun out and he's like, all right, let's fight. And then Lee comes up. He's like, they trying to stop it, and he bats him away. He tries to do it again. He grabs his arm, and they start having like little fisticuffs. Um, and then they have kind of like start talking Chinese to each other, or the Cantonese or something like that. And they were like, oh, okay. And then so yeah, that's the only reason why that Don Cheadle is in a Rush Hour film, is because he wanted to fight Jackie Chan and he wanted to speak Chinese in it. So okay then. And this is gonna be a little bit weird, but apparently, did you know that the scene where after the spa fight, and they get captured, the scene where Carter and Lee are running down the street naked was an actual take. Um, I don't think they were naked per se, but if that's the case, then that's got to be really uncomfortable. But yeah, according to the notes on IMDb, that they couldn't shut down the freeway for that scene, and so they're like, you know what, screw, we just have the cars flow through, and then we'll just have them start running. With I think Jackie has newspapers around his waist, and uh, Tucker has um I think it's like trash can lids, like metal trash can lids. And yeah, it was weird. And then they bust into the agent building. So yeah. The score in this film was again composed by Lalo Schifrin, and I think he actually composed the soundtracks for all three films. So hey, you gotta give it to him. I would say the score for me is about on par, the same level for me as the original. But it still has the same flaw where like in terms of the movie it works fantastic, but listening to it by itself is just kind of overall. Like with the first film, I don't know if there is an official soundtrack release for the film. You can look it up if you want to, but yeah, I don't think there is an actual. I know there's most likely not an expanded release of the soundtrack, but I don't even know if there's like a pop album that came out when the film came out. So yeah, so I think that's pretty much about everything. So, final thoughts on Rush Hour 2. As I mentioned earlier, um, it's not as good as the original, which I was kind of expecting, but it's still a very good film. And honestly, if I watch Rush Hour, like ever watch the first Rush Hour, I'm kind of compelled in watching the second one because this film is honestly, it's a good follow up to the original, and it doesn't feel like that anything is, you know, hindered by the fact that it's a sequel. It's kind of like Jaws 2 for me, where if I watch Jaws 1, I'm kind of compelled to watch Jaws 2 because it doesn't hurt the original and it continues the story well. Uh, so I'm actually going to give this film the same ranking as the original, but I still think it's not as good as the original, but it's very, very close to being as good as the original. So I'm going to give it the same ranking as the original, an A minus. So that was it for the Rush Hour 2 review. You can click over here on my profile picture to go to my channel, or click down on my username down there. And make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon to get notified when future videos are coming out. And you can click over here to watch the latest 2 videos. And stay tuned for this Friday where I'm going to be discussing Rush Hour 3. And then I'm going to leave the 100th episode as a surprise. So yeah, so stay tuned for next week, or no, not next week, next Friday for the Rush Hour 3 review. Anyway, also make sure to go and check out my social media pages down there. I forget to mention it most of the time, but make sure to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. They're all down in the description below. And also make sure to follow me on Twitch because Halloween season is coming around, and I do plan on doing a lot of live streaming right then. So hope you guys enjoy this video, and stay tuned for next Friday, where I'm going to be discussing Rush Hour 3. Live long and prosper. Ale.